Hi everybody, Kyle Austin with Matt Wenzel outside Spartan Stadium, previewing this week's Michigan State game at Ohio State. Noon kickoff on Saturday. I've got 3 questions for Matt as always. Matt, question number 1. We've seen Brian Lewerke throw 50 plus times in the last 2 weeks. No quarterback under D'Antonio has ever done that, or frankly even come that close to doing that. He's performing well. He won the last game. I thought he performed well at Northwestern, but is this sustainable? This has always been a run-first offense. Can they keep doing this?
I think right now, like you said, it's always been a run-first offense, but right now this is their best offense. I don't think there's any question about it. Offensive line outside of Brian Allen is pretty young and inexperienced. They haven't been able to establish a push up front all year. So letting Brian Lewerke throw the ball 40, 50 times a game is as good as it gets. I think it is to an extent that, I have a lot of confidence in him, and Michigan State has such a really young and talented group of receivers that have been really promising lately. Felton Davis is emerging. The guy looks like he's going to be playing on Sundays in the near future. Darrell Stewart Jr. has been really good, and then you got the freshmen with Hunter Rison and Cody White. So, yeah, if Brian Lewerke throws the ball 45, 50 times on Saturday and throws for 300 and some yards, I will not be shocked.
My question is how teams start to adjust to that. I think everybody goes in thinking that you're going to get that hard-nosed Michigan State running attack, but at what point do they start dropping some guys out of the box, putting a little more guys in coverage and making it a little bit harder for Brian Lewerke? I don't think we would have expected Northwestern or Penn State to do that, but maybe that's something Ohio State thinks about this week. That's kind of my question, is it sustainable? Is how much do teams start adjusting to that, and how can Brian Lewerke kind of compete with that?
Ohio State gave up five touchdown passes to Nate Stanley last week. Iowa was hardly a high-scoring team, so that's something to look at.
All right, question number 2. In the stadium behind us a couple years ago, I remember JT Barrett coming in a couple years ago and just being absolutely lights out. And he's been pretty up and down since then. He had the great game against Penn State. Obviously a down week, 3 or 4 interceptions last week. How does Michigan State slow him down? And they got J.K. Dobbins in the backfield too.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, because Michigan State has a #1 rush defense in the Big Ten, #3 in the country. I think it's 87.0 yards per game. They have not allowed a 100-yard rusher all season. Levante Bellamy or whatever it was for Western at 67. And Dobbins is averaging now 100 or 101 a game. So, I think you can't let them run wild. Then talk about it every week. If they can slow down the run and force JT Barrett to try and pass, granted it seems like he's been there forever now, and he has torn teams up, but he threw 4 interceptions last week. I just don't know what other way you'd want to do it other than to force him to make decisions with his arm and maybe get uncomfortable and throw those balls up. Make him make mistakes. Yeah,
I agree. Whatever Iowa did last week, do that. Question number 3, speaking of Iowa, for the first time ever, I feel like I can say Urban Meyer's Ohio State Buckeyes are coming off a blowout loss coming in here. Michigan State obviously coming off a great win over Penn State. How much stock do you kind of put in those 2 different momentum going into this game?
Well, I know 55 points for Iowa against Ohio State was shocking. Right. That's the most they've given up during Meyer's tenure. And then Michigan State, the flip, big second top 10 win of the season with a 3-hour and 23-minute rain delay, a lot of emotion. It's a huge victory. Ohio State's coming off the opposite. I don't envision the scenario where Ohio State has really a good chance of getting into the playoff now. They can still win the Big Ten, and all that, but is that enough motivation for those guys to get back up after last week versus, the opposite for Michigan State, where a week ago this time it looked pretty unlikely that they would be in that position, and here they are. So very, very contrasting weekends last Saturday.
I think the biggest thing I take out of it is confidence from Michigan State. It's something Mark Antonio talks a lot, but I don't think there's nothing to that. This is a young team, and I think they know that they just beat a very good team that's on the caliber of Ohio State. They did it here. Now they have to go on the road, but this is a team that knows they can do it. And that's, momentum, I have my doubts about how much of a thing momentum really is. But I think they can go in there knowing that they just did it, having that fresh in their mind. I think that works in their favor.
There should be nothing surprising about Michigan State under Mark D'Antonio going into Ohio State and at least making it a very competitive game in the 4th quarter.
Last time I was at that stadium, we found out that Connor Cook wasn't playing about 5 minutes before game time, and a certain media member predicted a 50-0 defeat, and then Michael Geiger, and the rest. So, don't be surprised anything that happens on Saturday.
Yep.
Well, I'll do it here. We'll see you from Columbus on Saturday, and check mlive.com/Spartans for all your coverage.